Hope, aspiration, connection, belonging, culture. These are the stories we tell. Join me as I speak to storytellers from across the world and hear about what inspires them to create the reality they want to live in. I spoke today to Roger9000, musician, Bitcoiner, and the creator of cacao ceremonies and chocolate making workshops at Bitcoin conferences. He shared his journey in becoming a Bitcoiner and how he channels that into his music. He also shared a fairly shocking story with me about an incident in November of this year when he was returning from adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador back to the States. So you'd want to listen to that one. Quick reminder, my book, 24, the first book of fiction on Bitcoin, is now available for purchase on Amazon. If you're listening to this in a podcast, you'll find the link in the show notes. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll find it in the video description. 9000, welcome to the
Hey,
stories we tell. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm great, Avi. Thanks for having me. It's great to be on, man.
Yeah,
Yeah, this the stories are what it's all about, brother.
yeah, and you got some stories to tell. I can, from our prior conversations this year, I certainly know that. So why don't we start with the story of 9000? What's that all about?
Yeah, well, nine is my lucky number, and I was told this by my late stepmother, who was a numerologist, actually. Um, Even though we didn't quite recognize her talents at the time, so we were quite dismissive, actually, which is a shame. But she would often say, nine is your number, and you can see it throughout, your history. Like, and funnily enough, I started looking at all these things in my past, like, my addresses I lived at, or um, significant things that would happen in my life, and they were all around the number nine. And it's really true. It's in my birth date. It's in my um, yeah, it's in many things in my life. So nine is my lucky number. And at the time, Bitcoin was sort of just trying to break 9,000. So I
Mm.
kind of thought, yeah, you know, I, I kind of had always had this infatuation with Stanley Kubrick as well. And I don't know if you know the computer HAL 9000. Um, and I originally thought HAL 9000 would be an amazing name, actually. And who knows, I might actually change my name one day to HAL 9000 in 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 respect of HAL and in respect of 9000. So yeah, there's a lot of, and the more I look into it, the more numerology I see in Bitcoin. Um, the 369 thing is always coming around, and Tesla and all that stuff. So numbers are very much a part of Bitcoin. They're very much a part of our universe, and they've probably always been here, a bit like Bitcoin as well. So yeah, yeah, the number nine. It encompasses all the numbers as well. I don't know. You have to speak to a lady called Ox Power. Her name is, and she's a numerologist as well. And she actually told me it's no coincidence that you chose 9,000. My real name is Roger, but the 9,000 is, yeah, an additional. You can probably guess, but yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for 9,000, and even the three zeros, and the actual number of letters, Roger 9000, actually makes up nine nine symbols, I guess you could say. So there's a lot of reasons for the number nine. Yeah.
That's great, man. So Roger, for some of the folks who might not know you, right? I mean, I know you as a musician who plays at a lot of Bitcoin concerts. But obviously, there's a lot more to Roger 9000 than just that. So, what's your story, man? How did you?
Mm.
How is it that I bump into you all over the world? You name the place, and you're there with your whatever that instrument is that you play. And I want to talk to you about that. And you're just jamming it up,
Sure.
and everyone's having a great time. The kids love you; they're grooving, and it's. But how is it that you've ended up in that situation?
Yeah. I speak to a lot of Bitcoiners about how they end up where they are, and I keep coming back to this place of um, I've always been on this trajectory, and I think a lot of Bitcoiners would agree that they've always been on this trajectory in search of Bitcoin in some way, and um, and so realistically, all I can say is I've I've known that I've been searching for something all my life, and when I recognized it was Bitcoin, it made perfect sense. So, you know, for the whole history of my life that I can think of, I've always been a bit of an outsider. I've always been a bit sort of running against the current, a bit weird, a bit, well, this guy doesn't really know what he's about, all that kind of stuff. And I think, yeah, as Bitcoiners, I think all of us have this kind of feeling. It's this weird, um, yeah, not quite fitting in kind of feeling. And so, yeah, that I guess that led me to music because I thought, well, if I don't really fit in anywhere, then maybe I'll just create my own space and try to, and then I don't have to try to fit in, because I'll be creating my my story as I go, so to speak. And so music became, yeah, a real place for me to discover myself. And I think we can talk about this later as well. I think Bitcoin is about a facilitator that enables you to discover yourself. And really, really, that's been the main journey, trying to discover myself as well. And um, yeah, like there's um, there's no real rhyme or reason that I've ended up where I am. But apart from the fact that I'm trying to, um, yeah, trying to be as truthful and as authentic about myself as possible, and that's what I think, Bitcoin helped me to do. Music initially, but then eventually Bitcoin. So yeah, that's what led me to Bitcoin. Really, just trying to find myself. Um, yeah.
It's funny you say that, Roger. I mean, I'm sure you've heard this from other Bitcoiners as well. Like we're all a bunch of misfits, right? We never fit into this fiat world, and then somehow magically at this time and this place, we all found each other, right? And created this magical
Mm, mm.
community. Um, but just going back to the music, were you
Yes.
ever classically trained in any instrument?
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah. So I started sort of playing guitar initially, and that was really my connection to creating music as well, because I sort of, well, yeah, I started to write songs on a guitar, and then realized I couldn't sing them, and that was the really big leaping off for me, because it was all about, well, how do I bring these songs to life? And it was all about singing a melody to what I was playing, and I realized I couldn't sing, or at least people told me I couldn't sing. But I was doing something weird, and it wasn't really working. So I started to join choirs, and started to join bands, and bit by bit, I mean, I I realized I had to take music seriously because it was what was allowing me to be at least somewhat myself, or at least express myself properly. So I, um, yeah, I started taking singing lessons, and that was really the jumping off point because then I realized, oh man, I actually need to know more about music. Uh, and then, and yeah, and then I just took it seriously. I auditioned for some music schools and eventually found a really good singing teacher. He enabled me to audition for the Conservatorium of Music, and then I studied. So I got in the Conservatorium. I studied a bit of opera in Baroque opera and early opera, and so I had already started playing piano as well. So I got some grades under my belt, um, and yeah, I I just took music really seriously from that point on, and I think it's been my life really for at least sort of 20 years now, really, just focusing on being as, yeah, as professional about music as I can. It's really hard though, because uh, I've never really, well, up until Bitcoin, I never really found what I was doing music for as having real importance, and then Bitcoin really informed all of my music playing. So I feel like, yeah, I feel like without Bitcoin, I don't know if I would still be as serious about music. So, um, yeah, uh, I could talk about this stuff for hours, Avi. I mean, music is, uh, it's an ever-growing thing though for me, just like Bitcoin, really.
When was the
Yeah.
first Bitcoin conference you played at?
Well, technically, I showed up at Miami 2021, and I'd already been busking quite a bit in London. So I thought, well, I don't know anyone at Bitcoin 2021, so I'm just going to turn up with my gear and busk, and and that's what I did. And I started busking outside. It was sort of um, I don't know if you remember. Did you go to Bitcoin 2021?
No,
Were you there?
that was no,
It
I did
was
that was one I missed.
it was really big actually, considering it was the sort of in the well, I wouldn't say the height of the pandemic. It was definitely the one where Bitcoiners were like, you know what, fuck this, let's just go to a conference. We don't care about COVID anymore. And it was really exciting for me because I just thought, man, I've just got to do this. Um, So yeah, I'd already been busking for a little while, so I had a bit of a portable rig that I could just set up anywhere. Um, and that was through the pandemic because I was like, well, I can't play because all the venues are shut down, and none of my band members actually wanted to play with me anyway because they all believed in COVID, which is another story. Um, so I set up a busking rig, which became really portable for getting on a plane actually, and I could just take my whole band with me. So that was technically the first Bitcoin conference I played at was Miami 2021, where I busked outside the conference, which was loads of fun. I ended up playing for like 4 hours or 5 hours or something, and I got heat stroke, which really wasn't smart because it was like, you know 100 degrees or something. It was just crazy. Um, so yeah, busking's fun, but you just got to be a little bit aware of the elements.
So
But
after
yeah,
that, you became a regular at these. I don't remember seeing you at 2022. Were you there?
no, no, I didn't. No, no, I really wanted to go to that, but yeah, I can't remember why I couldn't go. I can't actually remember why I couldn't go. There's a reason I could. I just didn't either have the funds or I just couldn't do it. I've forgotten now. Um, but yeah, I did really want to go to that. Yeah.
So you
Um,
mentioned, yeah, no, go ahead, Roger.
I, I don't think I went to 2023 either, actually. Yeah, I've missed out on the Miami ones. Yeah.
Hmm.
Hopefully Nashville though, 2024.
Oh, it's in Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
Yeah. Yeah.
speaking about your busking gear, that is a really cool instrument, right? That it looks like a guitar, but it's like a sawn-off guitar. What is that?
Yeah. So it's a MIDI guitar, technically a MIDI guitar. Um, it's a it's what's called a it's what's called an instrument one. That's the model, and it's by a company called Artifon, and they're actually based in Nashville. Um, and initially, it was a Kickstarter project. So I bought one of like 400 at the time, and then it launched. So it's an instrument anyone can buy now, um, and it's basically a MIDI guitar. It's just like a guitar, um, only you are playing plastic frets instead of steel strings and steel frets. It's all plastic, but it's incredibly sensitive, um, and I actually find it a lot easier, I guess, because uh, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's just a way more, obviously I can travel with it, I can pack it in my suitcase, and it's a very practical instrument, um, and it's perfectly in tune all the time, just like I can transpose with it, I can change it to any sound I want as well. So I can play the bass with it. I can play the triangle, or the drums, or whatever. So it's really practical for what I want to do. And being essentially a one man band, I feel like I have the whole band at my fingertips when I can play an instrument like that. And it just enables me to bounce around the stage. I find it really limiting holding. I used to play a bass, and I don't know if you've ever played basses, but some of them are heavy motherfuckers. I mean, they're just, you know, what Flea used to do, bouncing around. Um, you know, that just must have been exhausting every night. Um, I kind of I like to play multiple instruments, and so in a way, I can play multiple instruments and bounce around on stage. So it's very practical, that instrument. Yeah, I've got to
No,
find
that
a sorry.
no, it's. I was going to say it's. It seems like you're having a lot of fun on stage when you're playing that. Now you said it's a MIDI guitar, but obviously there's some kind of renderer that you plug into that actually renders the sound as non-MIDI, right? Because I I've heard. It sounds like an electric guitar when you want it to sound like one. You can apply different patches to it, right?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, MIDI is just a signal, right? So a MIDI note can be transformed into any kind of sound you want it to be, um, and that's what's I mean, MIDI is taken over so many things of our life actually. Uh, so what MIDI is just literally just a signal anyway. So yeah, I can change any sound I like.
No, that's great. So, Roger, let's go to topic that you mentioned briefly, which is uh, Bitcoin sort of allowed you certainly to find your purpose, right? And make your music mean something to you. Certainly, it's true in many of our cases. Obviously, not with music for me, but just in terms of the purpose I have with life. But what was that journey like? When did that aha moment happen for
Mm.
you?
Um, it's a difficult one to map because I think as a musician, I was always looking to express an authentic thought or a real. I think that's what artists, or I think that's what If we get back to this concept of like, I think we're all creators, but I think artists tend to make their life about creation rather like or about specific expressional creation. And um, and so I was always trying to express something authentic about myself or about the world that I could, I don't know, that I could manifest in some way. And I looked around and I like it's not like people weren't doing that anymore, but I did feel in the music industry anyway that people had started to lose. Uh, they started to express for expression's sake. I mean, I think that's what a lot of artists tend to find they're doing and I'd say it's because they're they're just having a lot of influences that they think, well, I just need to follow that, because if I follow what someone does, well, then they've already done it in a way that's generated attention for them. So I'll just copy what they do. And a lot of artists tend to just follow other artists, right? Like in terms of how they're expressing themselves. And I felt like there's a lot of artists doing that, but then there's a lot of artists who just create for creation's sake rather than having actually something expressive that they really want to say about the world. And I think it's a lot of that's to do with not understanding the way the world works as well, because I think as Bitcoiners we see really deeply into the world. We see how the world is working and why the problems are the way they are. A lot of artists, they're a bit clueless as to how. I don't want to be sort of judgmental or think that I know what's really going on, but I remember being there. I remember being there as an artist and thinking that, oh, yeah, you had to take a side or you had to understand politics or you have to understand the environment, all of that kind of stuff. And I think as Bitcoiners, we kind of know that there's a deeper problem here, and it's the money, right? And that's what creates so many of these problems. Um, so, um, what was your question again, man? Sorry. Like, how did I come to a place of expressing myself through Bitcoin, or as a musician expressing Bitcoin? You mean? Yeah. Um, so it was a really long journey, man. I have to say, it wasn't. And initially I thought, fuck, Bitcoin is way too big to try to compress into something like a song or, you know, and I still think it's completely unknowable and it's completely, um, it's, it's completely mysterious. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin. And I don't think we should ever try to be definitive about Bitcoin or try to express, or say, oh no, that is the perfect definition of Bitcoin, because there never will be a perfect definition. There will never, everyone's interpretation is valid and it is what it is for people. So that's the beauty. And that's why I think people should express themselves about it as much as they can. but every expression is going to be valid, and it's going to be um, just as important to somebody as any other expression, right? So I guess the way I came to it was just falling in love with Bitcoin, firstly, right? Like falling in love with the concept of what Bitcoin was, and then realizing, well, the only thing that I feel like I can do um, happened to be music. And so, how do I express Bitcoin through music? And initially, I thought it was impossible. I really did. And I can imagine a lot of artists or a lot of musicians who sort of think, how am I going to talk about this fucking protocol? Like, because they think of Bitcoin as a protocol, or they think of Bitcoin as a specific thing. Oh, well, it's just money, or it's just a mining rig, or it's just this, or it's just that. I think though, when Bitcoin opens up to you and you see that actually Bitcoin is whatever the fuck you want it to be, and it quite literally is whatever the hell you want it to be, um, then I guess you can express it in so many different ways. And yeah, I think Bitcoin artists really are still developing, and still, like, there's just so much. And I don't know. I mean, some people say, oh yeah, Bitcoin will just disappear, just like the internet just disappeared, and we don't consider it anymore. I really think it's going to be quite the opposite of that. I think, but who knows? I mean, we just don't know, right? But it feels to me like Bitcoin is going to actually transform humanity. It's not like, yeah, the internet enables humanity to communicate in a special way, but I think Bitcoin actually, I don't think the internet is quite as good at, you know, as as being a transformation of the self. Bitcoin is, I think, literally the transformational stuff that enables you to be yourself, and that's that magic, that I don't think the Bitcoin, I don't think that the internet could ever create that kind of magic the way Bitcoin will. But it's just an interpretation, I guess.
No, it's a beautiful one, Roger. Look, and when people say Bitcoin will disappear in the same way that the internet disappeared, right? Meaning it's just so all pervasive that your life doesn't touch you. I think that's a good thing, right? Meaning, if
Mm,
Bitcoin disappears
mm,
in that sense, it's because it's become all pervasive, right? And we know this in
mm,
our lives, it is all pervasive, but it sort of consumes our lives. I guess we think about it all the time,
mm,
uh, but yeah, I
mm,
mean, if it becomes this omnipotent or omnipresent, I should say, uh, medium,
mm.
then I think that's a good thing.
Sure, sure, sure. And how it how it unfolds is completely unknowable. But and maybe it is just about understanding. I still believe it's just about getting to an understanding of yourself, and Bitcoin, it really provides a medium for understanding yourself, or at least I don't know. It makes perfect sense to me that that's what it's about. But I guess everyone will have their own journey with Bitcoin, so it can be completely different for other people.
Yeah. So, Roger, one of the other things you do, which is fantastic at these conferences, is you do the chocolate making
Hmm.
workshops and the cacao ceremonies. And the kids
Hmm.
definitely love that. You're a hit with the kids, not just for your music, but for the chocolate as well. Uh, what's the story behind? Well, I guess is it a different story behind the cacao ceremonies and the chocolate making workshops?
Hmm.
But what are those stories?
Well, the chocolate making workshop stemmed from my sort of my ex-girlfriend, her family in the UK used to do these Easter egg hunts, and we always used to have fun. You know, I loved hiding Easter eggs, and um, as I used to hide them up trees, I used to hide. We used to make these big maps, and people could sort of go on these big sort of orienteering um, adventures to find the eggs, right? So we were doing these Easter egg hunts, and then as this is going on, I'm starting to learn more and more about my health, and of course, I'd already been on this health journey before Bitcoin, but I think that's the other great thing about Bitcoin. It holds a mirror up to society in other ways, and you start to think about all of these other aspects and go down all these other rabbit holes, and health is definitely one of them. Uh, and I realized actually fairly late in the journey how healthy cacao was, and how healthy chocolate is, and how it had been completely ruined by sugar, and how sugar is the fiat to chocolate the way fiat is the, yeah, well, sugar is the destroyer of chocolate the way fiat is the destroyer of our money. So it became really important, I thought, to understand what this cacao was. And when I started to realize the health benefits, the 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 beauty, I mean, literally the beauty of the balancing of cacao. And I'm thinking of writing a book, actually, the beauty of um, the beautiful balance of Bitcoin. But I think it's yeah, the beautiful balance of Bitcoin and cacao. That's a presentation I gave in El Salvador. But I think the beautiful balance of cacao is that it harmonizes humans and nature in a very specific way. But we can talk about that a bit. Just to give you an idea of where I came from with the chocolate, it was basically a balancing thing for the soul and for the body. And then I realized actually there's a spiritual dimension to all this as well, which is another balancing, another um, identity seeking or identity forming aspect. You know, the chocolate making workshop is kind of a creative thing where you pour yourself into your creation, um, and the cacao ceremony is it's like the practicing of the manifesting of your intention. So it's a kind of like a realization of your intention. The cacao itself is literally the medicine for the activation of that intention. So it's actually, I know a lot of people come to the concept of chocolate making or cacao ceremonies, and they kind of think, well, firstly, how the hell does that have anything to do with Bitcoin? But secondly, it sounds too woo woo and too spiritual, and but in a way, that was what influenced me to think, well, actually, Bitcoiners really need to know about this stuff, because it's actually all about what that transformational process of Bitcoin is all about. It's the recognizing of your true the recognizing of your truth or your authentic self is what Bitcoin is really about. And that's the process of the cacao ceremony. And the chocolate making workshop, I think, is even more, it's fun, and I think there's an element to it that makes it a bit more open for everyone. I've often thought that, yeah, the Bitcoin is a little bit too, it's dominated by tech and by intellect and all this stuff. And making chocolate is just kind of fun, whether you're a kid or a male or a female, old or young, you can kind of get into just making chocolate. So I kind of thought it was quite an inclusive thing, whereas, well, I've heard beefsteaks can be a little bit, well, anyway, I don't know what you know about beefsteaks, but I don't, hesit I would be hesitant to say they're as inclusive somehow. But anyway, I think they're great. I've never been to one actually, so I really don't know. But yeah, have you been to one actually?
I have. No, I will say cacao ceremonies are definitely more all encompassing. They're for all ages.
Right, right. I mean, look, I still haven't been to one, but I know that they're quite specific. So I'm looking forward to going to one. Have you been to a cacao ceremony actually?
There's a funny story here, Roger, with when at BitBlock Boom this year,
Yep,
right?
yep.
I'm standing outside with some friends. It's late at night outside the hotel where the Hilton, right, where in Austin, where BitBlock Boom was held this year. No, I know they're moving to Dallas next year, but someone comes up and says, "Hey, Roger's doing a cacao ceremony in his hotel room. You guys want to come?" I said, "Hey, hell yeah, let's go." So we go up. It's probably around 1 a.m. at night. We get the room number. We knock on the door. We wait. Nothing happens. We knock again. Nothing happens. And for about 15 minutes of this, he said, "That's it. Let's just go back and finish our drinks." Roger's not doing a cacao ceremony, but presumably you were so engrossed in it that you didn't hear us outside.
So I can't remember what the room number was. Is it 1225? I can't remember. Anyway, um, look, man, yeah, I did hear about I did hear about that people came and no one answered the door. Yeah, so it's very possible, man. I don't know. So so there was a bit of a misunderstanding there because I never actually did a cacao ceremony at Big Block Boom. Um,
Mm.
I only started doing them in Charlotte, actually. So I was always doing chocolate making workshops, which some people interpreted to be cacao ceremonies. Um, they're kind of like a similar thing, I think, but they're actually kind of different. And, a proper cacao ceremony can be like the ones we were going to do in El Salvador, for example. Like they would be full day retreats where you come and you relax and you get a massage, you do meditation, you really try to set your intention, you even create the cacao yourself, you do some chanting, um, I believe, you place your intention into the cacao and then the cacao truly becomes the medicine for that intention. Then you meditate more, you consume the cacao, and then you manifest the cacao in yourself, like you truly dance or you sing or you play an instrument, whatever, to bring about the realization of that intention. And a cacao ceremony is, well, firstly, it's a more interactive thing with others. So it's a musical thing or it's an expressive thing. I like to get people to talk, and that's why I think this is going to be great for Bitcoiners and Bitcoiners in their realizing of their dreams, really, because that's what I think Bitcoin is. It's the realization of a dream that we all share collectively, um, and the cacao ceremony is it's the manifesting of that dream. It's like a collective, yeah, a collective journey of a dream that we all have. And the more we go on that journey, I think the more we realize what Bitcoin is here for, and we realize what it means to us, and we realize how it's going to, improve the world. So, and ultimately it's just about improving ourselves. I think that's really, you were talking about being instructors or being teachers for other people. I remember in LA we were talking about how, I think you were talking to me and Shooter, and you were saying, you guys should really be, you know, um, I've forgotten what the words you were using now, but
I said, Roger, what I said, and this is based on what I've noticed in both of you, is both of you are natural mentors, especially for younger kids, right? Young adults and children, and you can see that from the way children react to both you, Shoot, and there are some other folks in the Bitcoin world as well, right, who have this natural tendency to or inclination to be mentors. And one of the things that struck me is, if you'd been part of the fiat system and joined an institution of education where you said, well, you know what, I want to take my mentorship to the next level, that would have been completely beaten out of you. Right, you'd have been
mm,
drained of any enthusiasm, because you would have had to fit into some bureaucratic structure, follow very rigid set of procedures, and any natural proclivity you have to bringing out the best in kids, right, making them become the better versions of themselves, that would have been completely removed from you. So but we have an opportunity as Bitcoiners to inculcate that in our children, right? And folks like you, Shooter, there's General Kenobi, who's also a natural mentor, a young guy, Spanish Bitcoiner,
mm,
and and there's so many other examples like this, and we have an opportunity to expose our kids to that type of mentorship, like this constructive outside of this
mm,
traditional education system. But yeah, that was a long-winded
mm,
answer, Roger, but
mm.
that's what I told you guys in LA.
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. It's beautiful because being instructive it is actually just being yourself, really. But when you are truly yourself, you become inspirational for others, and if people resonate with that and they sort of think, wow, yeah, that guy's really doing it. Because see, the only reason I do it is because I've been inspired by somebody else who's done it. And so it is just passing the baton, really. Um, but it's not like you're aware of it. I don't think the guys who I was really inspired by, who I've been really inspired by, they wouldn't know what they, well, some of them would because they were literally my teachers, but others, yeah, they don't even know me, right? So, but yeah, being somebody real in somebody else's life, that's a pretty damn cool thing. I did some teaching in London. I taught some piano and guitar and voice and stuff, and it was pretty cool. It really was pretty cool. But I think what you're talking about is actually yeah, how to be, well, I mean, a teacher really is a mentor firstly, really, anyway. But were you thinking of actually organizing a mentorship sort of organization, or how did you see it?
So as we're most likely entering a new bull run, right, and a lot of
Mm,
us who've been painstakingly licking our wounds over the last few years and building up for this moment and potentially what lies ahead the next 2 years, I have a feeling that uh, there will be a lot more travel and world schooling happening as a result of this.
mm,
So,
mm,
and a lot of us will be in a position to completely break out of this, right? And say, yeah, this school
mm,
system is not for our kids. We want to travel and be
mm,
around like-minded people. Um, so
mm,
I think it becomes, while it's good to be largely unstructured from a kid standpoint, in my opinion, right? So that, free learning, if you will, it's also really helpful if they can have figures that they look up to and they respect, who can give them guidance on, just even if it's just basic life stuff, or it could also be specific subjects. In your case, it could be music, right? Shooter could be about filmmaking, but it doesn't just have to be that narrow. It can be just broader life lessons, and you guys certainly have that uh, capability to do that, the talent to do that.
Mm, mm. Yeah, I was just thinking. I'm thinking of putting on a bush bash here at my dad's place. And by the way, my dad is as sort of anti-Bitcoin as you could probably get. It's weird way, man. It's he is like he's a libertarian. He's anti-state. He's anti-tax. He's about as Bitcoiner as you could get in one way, and then he doesn't understand because he thinks there's no such thing possible as Bitcoin. Like he would never trust Bitcoin because he just doesn't trust that there isn't somebody behind it. He believes that it's all just a Ponzi scheme. It's all just there to, it's just one big cult thing. And anyway, um, so he feels he's very much a maverick in that way that he runs his own show, but being a part of something like Bitcoin, he would just feel like he's part of some gigantic cult, which is a shame. But anyway, he's very accepting. And I don't know if you've heard of bush bashers, but they're literally just Australian gatherings of Bitcoiners, right? They're free and they're very open and very loosely structured. And so anyway, I've managed to get my dad to agree to us having a gathering here on the property. So it's going to be interesting. But what I was just thinking of was that I can't speak to my dad about Bitcoin really. Um, a bit like, I don't know, maybe a parent can't really talk to their children about some things. Like there's some things that the child just needs to see happen or needs to hear from someone else, and then it's like, oh yeah, that guy was really inspiring, or that guy really made sense, or whatever it is. Um, so I'm just hoping that some of these Bitcoiners that come along may even be able to talk to my dad in a way that makes him realize what Bitcoin is. I have no idea, but yeah, we definitely learn from a global community now. Like it's not just our parents who are our mentors. It's really the community we grow up in a way, and that's the beauty of Bitcoin now. It's truly opening all that stuff up in such a way. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, uh, for sure, Roger. So the changing tracks here a little bit. You had an interesting incident
Mm.
happen to you. I don't know if you want to talk about that recently, where you after you finished with adopting Bitcoin in El Salvador, you were on your way back
Yeah,
to the States. But as we can see, you're not in the States, or as you just alluded to, you're in Australia. So what happened? What happened there?
yeah. Oh man. So I mean, I'd been asking for a bit of a bit of how do I put this? Like the US government have been tracking me for a while as to why I was going to Bitcoin conferences and why I'd be performing at them, and why I've got this bag full of cacao and cacao butter and all these things. So I definitely I'm still very much on their radar. Um, and basically they told me, look, man, you can't come to the States um, as a performer of any kind, right? You need a special visa for that. And I was sort of maintaining, well, yeah, I am performing at these conferences, but I'm not actually getting paid for any of it. So technically it's legal, right? Like it's not illegal to come and be at a Bitcoin conference and do Bitcoiner things and play music and make chocolate. And as long as I'm not getting paid for it, it's fine, right? So technically it's legal, but this last time, so I was transiting, I was heading back to Australia, and um, I had to go through, it's just south of LA, a place called Ontario, I think anyway, I keep thinking that was in Canada, but anyway, there's a place south of LA. Anyway, I was going to transit through there and then transit through Honolulu. So I'd actually have to transit through the States a couple of times before I could get back to Australia. Anyway, they stopped me um, where I landed, which was in Ontario. And they were like, look, man, we know you've been performing in the States again. And, I was in Pacific, and then I went to San Francisco, then I went to Halloween in Charlotte, and they had all this on record, and they were like, "Well, okay, man, you've been to these conferences, you've been making your chocolate or playing your music, and clearly these conferences have been charging people money for it, right? So whether you've been paid or not is irrelevant now. Like we're canceling your visa, and we're going to deport you back to San Salvador." Anyway, I thought, well, yeah, okay, no worries. Like I have to get a work visa anyway, so I don't mind. I don't mind. They put me in handcuffs, threw me in the back of a paddy wagon, drove me an hour to LAX. They shoved me into this detention center, right? They basically locked me up in this detention center um, for 2 days. They took away my laptop, my phone. I had no connection to the outside world for 2 days, and I'm asking the officer like, what's the story? Like, I've got hotels booked. I've just spent like nearly 3 grand on a ticket back to Australia. So I lose all of this. Uh, yeah, all of these travel arrangements. They just all get cancelled. And for 2 days, I'm just stuck in this room, um, with, Twinkies and crisps, like literally, like I'm glad I was able to fast, because if I was going to eat that stuff, I'd just get sick, basically. Um, anyway, after 2 days, they said, okay, we're going to get you to swear an oath. You're going to have to have an interview. You have to basically, you get all these questions. You're told, look, we're canceling your visa. Get your fingerprints taken, um, and yeah, your visa gets cancelled. And I was thinking, yeah, I'm going to get sent to Australia, right? Because that's where I was transiting to. And they were like, no, mate, you're going back to El Salvador, and you have to make your way from there. So that was a bit unfortunate, I guess. I mean, look, I actually had fun. Like, I was just sort of pacing up and down the detention center, just talking to myself, and I'm pretty good in small spaces now, because I've lived in a van for a couple of years, and I lived in London in a shoebox in London for a while as well. So it was fun, man. It was a fun experience, but
That
yeah, the
Roger, can I
U.S. government,
just can I stop you there? I mean, I've been
yeah.
listening. This is horrifying, by the way. It's absolutely horrifying that they could do this to you. Do you
I
have any
mean,
recourse? I mean, this is
that's
insane.
true. Yeah, there was a German guy in there who he said literally, this is actually against the Geneva Convention. This is actually illegal to do this to somebody, and you wouldn't be allowed to do it in Europe. He said this is just like we're literally being treated right like refugees, and we've got we've got legal passports, and they're just treating us like stateless refugees. And it was really weird, I have to say. I don't know really why I'm so desperate to go to the States still, but anyway, I guess I just feel like there's a lot of Bitcoiners there, and I just feel like it's great to hang out with you guys. And I don't know if it's just a legal thing, then it's no big deal. I feel
But
like this stuff is slowly becoming irrelevant to Bitcoiners anyway.
that's probably true. But I mean, this is kind of wild that they would do something like this to you, Roger. I mean, did you take this up with the Australian government when you got back? I mean, there's got to be some consequences to what to me sounds like a gross violation of your human rights for 2 days.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, they said, look, I was traveling on my British passport at the time, and they said, look, do you want to speak to the British Council about this, or uh, is there anything you want? And I thought, well, I mean, uh, it's all, it's all pretty well regulated, I would say, in terms of like these are the laws that they have for this kind of situation, and they can pretty much, do and say as they please. I feel like I just, man, it's the sly roundabout way. That's the only way we can really. I mean, there probably are some things that I could ask for legitimately and say, well, look, is there any compensation I can be granted here? But I mean, I figured when they want to throw the book at you, they do whatever they like, and there's no real recourse. But yeah, I haven't explored it though.
Well, kudos to you, my friend, for you know taking it so positively, right,
I,
and not letting that get you down. So you did say you're coming back to Nashville. Have you looked into what your options are?
yeah,
Would you need to get a work visa, or what's that going to look like?
mm, yeah. It's not too hard for Australians to get a work visa. So, and I had no idea because I was always traveling on my UK visa. Um, but yeah, as long as I can get an LLC, limited liability company to sponsor me, yeah, I can get a work visa. So I think that's what I'm going to aim to do, man. Doesn't look like it's expensive or too hard, so it might take a little bit of time, but hopefully I can do it before July next year. So yeah, you know, I'll give it a crack.
Well,
I still haven't been
I,
to New
I
York, man, so I want to come. Yeah,
you should, mate. You should. Uh, Look,
yeah.
I hope it works out. I'd love to have you back in the States, but I'm sure I'll see you
Mm.
elsewhere before then. I know there's. What's your next conference, Roger?
Um, well, hopefully I'm going to get this bush bash set up here. There's uh, what's it? Madeira,
I'll be
hopefully.
there.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be great. Bitcoin Atlantis. Um, then there's Bitcoin Alive here in Australia. There's a bush bash here in Melbourne as well. Um, Beechworth. There's the Halving Party, El Salvador. Bitblock Boom,
Yeah.
Halving Party as well. Hopefully they don't collide, but yeah, El Salvador, the El Salvador Halving Party should be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the El Salvador one is in early April. BitBlock Boom is around the 10th or 11th. I'm going to miss the El Salvador one. I'll be at BitBlock Boom, and then at
Mm-hmm.
the Euro halving party in Poland. I think that's probably the one that's going to be closest to the
Oh
halving.
yeah.
You should come to
Okay.
that one. It's
Okay.
a film festival.
That
It's a
sounds like fun.
yeah.
I was speaking to Tomasz about that actually. He said, "Yeah, yeah, I'd love to have you." Yeah, that would be great. That would be really great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking of going. I'm thinking of going to Europe for a few UK conferences as well. So yeah, definitely, man.
All right, man. Well, look,
Yeah,
Roger, appreciate you taking the time. This is a fun conversation. Once again,
yeah.
horrifying. I didn't realize how bad it was. I thought it was a little skirmish, and then you were off on your way back to Australia. But I didn't realize how bad it was. And really, big kudos to you for keeping your chin up and taking it so positively.
No, thanks, man. Yeah, no. It's all about having that bright orange light as the goal, as the focus, you know. So I think we all do it as Bitcoiners. There's nothing that's going to sort of stop us now, really. That's I think there's a song in that. There's a yeah, there already is a song called that.
There you go. There you go. All right, Roger. Take care, my friend.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
All right, man. All right. No worries, Avi. Yeah, yeah. See you soon.